Hi, I'm Yaffi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist and owner of Baby Bloom Nutrition. Welcome to Nap Time Nutrition. Today we're going to be talking about establishing boundaries. This goes really well with the holiday theme I've been doing the past few weeks. We did nutrition through the holidays, picky eating through the holidays, and now we're doing boundaries. So I had hoped to have a therapist on with me for this topic, but it didn't work out. So you get me. And I have an article that I'm putting in the comments that is going to help you and has actually some worksheets attached to it as well, where you can help identify and establish your own boundaries coming into the holiday season. So first thing, what are boundaries? Well, the technical definition of a boundary is where one person ends and the other person begins. Well, as far as it relates to people. Sometimes if you think of a relationship where there are unhealthy boundaries, there is too much overlap when it comes from one person to another. There's one person who's in control, or one person who knows a lot more about the other person, or there's just some kind of hierarchy going on. And that could be an unhealthy boundary. It's important to have boundaries between parents and children because we are our own people and we need to let our kids grow up to be their own people. And it's very difficult when they're young to establish boundaries. So imagine if you're trying to establish boundaries with your own parents, what a difficult dynamic that is. Because when you make a new friend or you're in a new romantic relationship, it's fairly easy to establish boundaries. But the parent-child relationship specifically is so dynamic and it changes as the years go on. They can be very difficult for the parent to maintain boundaries that the child, the teenager, the adult child is comfortable with. And so we as adults, having our own kids, trying to establish those boundaries with our own parents, it's nice to take a moment and just think about that dynamic and how difficult that is for our own parents who wiped our butts and whatever to respect our own boundaries when it comes to our own families. So that's why that relationship is very difficult. And that can extend to other relations. If you are close to other relations growing up, it can be difficult for them to understand your boundaries as well now that you've become an adult. So how do you deal with this? Well, first, establishing healthy boundaries in any relationship is a sign of self-respect. You can't truly blossom in a relationship, whether it's a close relative, whether it's a spouse, or whether it's just an acquaintance at work, unless you have healthy boundaries. Without those healthy boundaries, you're not able to truly have a good relationship. So how do we establish that? Okay, well, the first thing is identifying where you want your boundaries. Everybody's different with this. Some people are more able to share personal information on a larger scale, and some people are more reserved. So where you put your boundaries is going to be very specific to you and your needs and your personality and your family's needs as well. And when I say family, I mean you and your children and your spouse. Because a lot of times we're setting boundaries between our little family and the greater family, the more extended family. So the first thing you want to do is look at what makes you stressed out. Look at what triggers you and think maybe that is a boundary I need to consider. So you're going to name your limits. Look at things that trigger you, that make you that make you uncomfortable, that cause you discomfort and resentment. And that's where you really want to start drawing lines. You want to establish some space in those areas between yourself and other people in order to fully appreciate that relationship. Communicate those boundaries. Okay, that's the really hard part, right? Because everyone communicates differently. I'm a very direct person. I like to say, this is my boundary. I don't want to talk about this and hold firm to that. But that's not well received by everyone. And while I think it's the best way to communicate, it's not the best way to communicate if the other person who is on the other end of the conversation is not going to hear what I'm saying because they think I'm being overly aggressive, for example. Not that that's happened before. So it's important to think about the person you're speaking to and think about the best way that they might receive that message. And the truth is that when you are initially establishing boundaries, it might not go over well. And that's why you want to start small. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So you're going to communicate your boundaries. You want think about if you need to be direct or indirect in your communication, and definitely consider the follow through. When you establish a boundary, there is an implicit consequence on the other end. You don't have to say it. Sometimes you do. Stop bugging me or I'm going to file a restraining order. That would be an appropriate that's a time when you really do have to say the consequence. But for most of these conversations, you don't need to say a consequence. And the truth is that when you're verbalizing this, you want to make it about you. You don't want to say, you stop bugging me. I mean, unless you're actually dealing with a potential restraining order situation. But in most cases, when someone is really on top of you all the time, you can say, I need space. I need some alone time right now. I need a quiet moment. Make it about you, and it's a much easier pill to swallow for the other person. You are annoying. You won't stop talking. These things don't go over well. So stick with the I language and make sure that you follow through with it. When you establish a boundary, follow through. I don't want to gossip about Aunt Frida. Okay, then don't. Don't say that you're not going to and then do it, because that really blurs all of the other boundaries that you're trying to communicate. So follow through is very important for your own health and sanity, as well as for other people to understand that you're being sincere and serious. Self-care. I've talked about self-care a lot. It's very important to honor your own feelings, because when you honor your feelings, you have more energy to be a better you. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have better interpersonal conversations, interactions. And that's really what the holidays are about. Positive interpersonal interactions with family members and friends. And this is really the best way. Take care of yourself. Take a moment by yourself. Take a bath, go get a manicure, whatever is your thing. Everybody has something different. Mine is Zumba or chocolate. So figure out what your self-care is, what recharges you, and go for it. Make sure you take care of yourself, especially during the season when everything is so family intense and so intense in general. You're around people all the time. Sometimes you just need a moment of quiet. Well, that's me anyway. Everyone has their thing. Get support. I spoke about this with eating through the holidays and picky eating through the holidays, having a safe place. It's important to have a safe place or have a safe friend. If something happens, you can go to that place and take a deep breath. It could be a mental place. It could be a physical place. It could be a phone call with a specific friend, and you talk about it ahead of time and you say, this is what's going on. I might need to call you. And this person is your lifeline. Something happens, you pick up the phone and call. So I mentioned starting small. There are a couple of reasons for this. One is that it's going to tune other people into the idea that you are starting to establish boundaries, but you're starting small. The other is that when you're starting to establish boundaries, if you previously have unhealthy boundaries, you have a history of unhealthy boundaries, it's going to be uncomfortable for you to establish boundaries. So it's important to start small so that you can build up your confidence. And when you build up your confidence, you'll be able to communicate more clearly and decisively. So here are a few tips. Don't be defensive. Okay, it's really difficult to say don't be defensive. It's going to be hard. You're going to communicate these new boundaries, and you may get some kickback. You'll probably get some kickback, and you may feel the need to explain, which leads to over-explaining. So don't do that, because you're just going to dig yourself into a pit. You say, you know what? I'm not going to be discussing Aunt Frida's personal life. End of story. You don't have to explain further. That in and of itself is enough explanation. So stop there, don't overdo it. Be a good example for your kids and your spouse and younger family members who would really like to set boundaries and don't know how. You are going to be much happier if you can establish solid boundaries with family members and friends. And other people may be looking for the same guidance, and you can be an example to them as well. Don't be sucked into a guilt trip. This is your life. This is your family. What you're eating, what you're doing, none of this is anyone's business. This is your business. You are taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your mini family, or maxi family, who knows. You do not need to explain yourself to people. You don't need to get sucked into that. So if someone else is giving you a guilt trip for establishing healthy boundaries, they're trying to control you. And control is not love. Some people don't really know how to express love, and so they try to express it by controlling you, by telling you what to think, by telling you what to do, by telling you what to feed your kids and how to feed them, by telling you if you're wearing too many layers or not enough layers or what have you. This is what people do. They do mean well. in a lot of circumstances, but it doesn't create healthy relationships, healthy boundaries with you. So really go into this holiday season knowing that this is going to be the best yet, that you're going to be creating fantastic memories for yourself and for your family, and establishing healthy boundaries is really part of that. So thank you for joining me. I think that's the end of my holiday series, unless I come up with something fabulous for next week. But I do have some announcements. Toddler Test Kitchen is coming up at the farm right outside Botanica. It's a beautiful location. It's going to be Saturday, January 5th with Sarah Garone of alovelettertofood.com. I don't teach the Saturday classes. It's going to be fabulous. We have a brand new recipe to roll out and some really fun new toys, some kitchen equipment for the kids. So come join me for that. Every Tuesday, Nap Time Nutrition live at 1 p.m. Arizona time, which is 3 p.m. East Coast time and 12 noon on the West Coast. And what else is going on? Oh, this coming Sunday, we have the Food Drive for Hunger, which is going to be at a location in Mesa. I can drop the link for that. I'm going to be doing mini Toddler Test Kitchen breakouts and doing a talk on eating through the holidays and nutrition through the holidays. So come join me for that. Sign up for my newsletter if you want to know everything I have going on. And if you join me this morning at Awesome Toddlers Soft Indoor Playground at Santa Mall, that was fun. And we'll be doing that again, probably in a Q&A format because it's much easier while the kids are playing. So thank you for joining me. Have a very happy holiday season, and I'll see you next Tuesday for Nap Time Nutrition. You won't want to miss it.